Good day, everyone. It's Steve Anderson, and welcome to the pre-game show for our Crown Council webinar today. We're about 4 minutes from launch, and so I thought I'd just take a minute or so as we're getting ready to give some announcements and some updates. Got a lot of exciting things going on at the Crown Council, and so I thought I'd just share with you some exciting things that are happening for which you might want to be involved. So first off, we're looking forward to the Crown Council annual event coming up in February. We are only 117 days away, so it is just right around the corner. And if by chance you have not registered yet, there are still some limited seats available. You can register for the annual event at ccannualevent.com. If you have registered for the annual event, go to that website as well. You want to make sure that you have RSVP'd and that you have all your team member names inputs so we can make sure all the preparations are in gear for that, as well as it is time for nominations for all of the annual event awards. So visit the Crown Council annual event website, ccannualevent.com, where you can make nominations and make sure that everyone is confirmed and RSVP'd. The annual event every year is the launch of each year's Young Dentist program. It is one of the most remarkable programs for young dentists, an amazing continuing education value, where young dentists have the opportunity to work side by side with some great mentors, including Dr. Dave Hornbrook. It is primarily a clinical continuing education program for any dentist that has been out of school 5 years or less. So we are almost full for next year's Young Dentist program. If anyone on your team has been out of dental school 5 years or less, or you know of a young dentist, shoot us an email at director@crowncouncil.com with contact information, and we'll make sure and send them information. You can also find information at youngdentistprogram.com on the internet. Big time exciting news. We went over $42 million in total dollars raised in the Smiles for Life campaign just this last week. So we are now over the $42 million mark, and congrats on everybody who has participated in that this year as well as over the years. We are sending out information on next year's campaign, which actually starts now in terms of preparation. And again, if you have not participated in Smiles for Life in the past, then you'll certainly want to, again, email director@crowncouncil.com for information there. Finally, before we get started, our humanitarian trips, in fact, we'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the program, continue to go strong. Our March 2019 humanitarian expedition to Guatemala has a late-breaking availability. These spots fill up a year in advance typically, and we've had some extenuating circumstances that have opened up a spot for a dentist and a team to go to Guatemala at a very reasonable donation. So if that fits, again, email director@crowncouncil.com for more information. We are on the hunt for a great dentist and team to accompany us there. So with that, we will get rolling with our webinar today. We've entitled today's webinar, Winning with the Unfair Advantage, and how you can create a winning culture of success, even a learning culture of success in your practice. To get started, I'd like to share with you what I call the 100% rule. This is based on some research that I quote often from Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University in California, who did a study not too long ago on the power of goal setting. And one of the things that she found is that you have a 50% greater chance of accomplishing a goal if it's written down. Simply by just writing the goal down, you increase your odds of success by 50%. You have a 100% better chance of accomplishing a goal if it is written down with regular accountability. And so I'm going to take those two goals, relate them to a Crown Council qualified member requirement. Now, if you don't happen to be familiar with Crown Council qualified membership, I highly encourage you to get schooled up and to apply. Here's how it works. There are 8 requirements to be a Crown Council qualified member office. They are basically 8 things that we think every practice and every dentist should be doing on a regular basis to run a well-managed practice. One of those requirements is to have a 2-year written continuing education plan that shows a balance between clinical management and people/marketing skills training for the entire team, not just the dentist, but for the entire team. So whether you're a qualified member office or not, this is highly recommended that every Crown Council team have a learning culture, because that's the only way that you'll be able to engage in continual improvement and be the best office in your market. So today we're going to talk about some secrets of creating that kind of a learning culture in your practice, and at the same time, how you can employ this idea of a 2-year written continuing education plan that has a balance of all the things you need to do to ongoing be a successful practice. So grab your pens. This is packed with some great ideas and things how you can construct your own 2-year written continuing education plan. Part of the reason that we say 2 years and that it's in writing is it does to some degree prevent the CE of the month mentality, which is you hear about a course and it sounds really exciting, and so you go sign up for the course, which is fine as long as you don't end up hopscotching all over dentistry with whatever the latest thing is. So our goal here is to help build a plan that's balanced and will help build the practice, and at the same time build every team member in it. The best teams are learning teams, and the best Crown Council teams engage in continual improvement by always learning. So I'm going to give you some simple ways today that you can build your 2-year written continuing education plan. And if you so choose, I'd highly recommend that you, if you're not already, become a qualified member office of the Crown Council. So this is what I call the CE Essential 3. This is going to be different than what you think. I'm going to give you some tips and secrets of how you can be engaged in continuing education on a regular basis without even having to leave the office. So here's the Essential 3 to create a learning culture of success. Number 1, your morning opportunity meeting. We're going to talk here in just a moment about how you can turn your morning opportunity meeting into a learning experience in just a few short seconds. Number 2, we'll talk about your weekly meeting and what type of continuing education and learning can be incorporated into your weekly meeting. And we'll also talk about your monthly meeting and the difference between these 3. So sometimes we don't think about these meetings as being opportunities, or we don't think of them in the context of continuing education. A culture of success that has the backdrop of being a learning culture is incorporating learning and quote unquote CE every opportunity that they can. So morning opportunity meeting. Here are 3 things to consider that will make your morning opportunity a learning experience. So the morning opportunity meeting is all about working in the practice. In other words, what are the things that we need to do today to practice effectively and successfully? So what are you learning every morning in your morning opportunity meeting? For years, we've taught that the morning opportunity meeting should start with one question. which is what was the best thing that happened yesterday? In other words, what worked? This is a learning moment. When someone on the team shares what worked from yesterday, and the idea here would be it'd be something that worked with a patient in terms of verbal skills, case acceptance, it might be a procedure, it might be something that happened up front. But when you share what worked yesterday, and the one or two team members that are called on to share that, that is a learning moment. Whatever works for one potentially can work for everyone. And that's the design of that question. So your morning opportunity meeting should start every day with the same question. What worked yesterday? What was the best thing that happened yesterday that worked? And then the translation is, what can everyone do to use that same idea in what they're doing? That one simple question is a learning question. A learning organization is one that's constantly asking what's working and what can we do to make sure that everyone is putting that into place. Your weekly meeting. The difference between your morning meeting and your weekly meeting, in your morning meeting, you're working in the practice. In your weekly meeting, that we recommend that you do once a week for about an hour, you're working on the practice. You're working on how things are running, you're problem solving. You're working on the business, not just in it. So at the recommendation of one of our Crown Council members, Lanny Basham, former Olympic gold medalist and 4-time world record holder, as he coaches champions, whether it's on the shooting range or in business, these are 3 questions that he recommends that every person and every team asks on a regular basis. We recommend you ask these every week. First, what worked? So from the last week, what worked? What were the things that worked best that we want to make sure we continue doing? Very similar to the question you ask in your morning meeting. Number 2, what did we learn? And what do you typically learn from the most, your successes or your failures? And usually it's the opportunities where we may have fallen short of what we expected that we learn the most. So from the last week, what worked? Second, what did we learn from what happened? And then third, and most importantly, what are we going to do? What are the things that we're going to do based on what worked and what we learned? What are we going to do moving forward? So a learning culture, a learning practice is always asking these 3 questions on a weekly basis. What worked? What did we learn? And then as a result of that, what are we going to do? So imagine if your team every week asked those 3 questions every week in your weekly meeting, so that you're constantly learning from each other and you're constantly improving based on your analysis of what worked, what you learned, and what you're going to do moving forward. Here are some weekly meeting suggestions as you build your learning strategy. Most everyone is familiar with the Crown Council resource of the Skill of the Week. The Skill of the Week is a short learning video that is online at crowncouncil.org. You can go under at crowncouncil.org, you can go under the training tab, and then simply go down the drop-down menu. You'll be able to find the Skill of the Week. Each week, we highlight a different Skill of the Week. It's a 4 to 5 minute video subject with yours truly that will focus on a specific case acceptance or patient service skill. Now, we recommend you do this at your weekly meeting. If you're having a weekly meeting, you can also do this in your morning meeting. But with your weekly meeting, what we build into that, to the Skill of the Week, is an exercise that you can do as a team. It doesn't take very long, but it's an exercise that'll keep everybody on the team plugged into great patient service skills. So as you're building out your learning culture plan, this can be considered part of your CE, part of your learning that you do as a team, is make sure that you incorporate the Skill of the Week. Each week we release a new skill of the week that comes out over the email network. You can also just find it online by going to the Crown Council website under training and go to the skill of the week. Additionally, if you have new team members, you can go to that same tab, and there's an icon there for what we call the Jumpstart program that highlights some specific skill of the week videos that a new team member can watch when they first onboard with the practice that'll help them get integrated into the culture in your practice. So that is an additional resource for, for new team members as you onboard them and help them grasp the idea of your learning culture of success. Next is for your monthly meeting, you might select, when you review your monthly results, select at least one learning experience that you're going to have in your monthly meeting. So I'm going to give you some examples of some learning experiences you can incorporate into your monthly meeting. There's a lot of them. Powerful team meetings, a program we call Culture Works, webinars, Mentor of the Month, the Lead Series, Practice, and the Practice of the Month. Let me walk through these very quickly. Powerful Team Meetings is a collection of longer subjects, 10 to 12 minutes, that are taken from some great Crown Council mentors over the years. If you go under the training tab and you go down under team meetings, then in that profile, there'll be a list of over 54 presentations that you can use in a monthly team meeting that will keep your team focused on providing great service to your patients and great team building topics. So as you build your monthly meeting, that's a great resource to draw on. All of the powerful team meetings have a team exercise that you can engage your whole team in that will implement the skill or the idea that is presented in that meeting. So again, this is the opportunity to build, as you're building your CE plan, this is part of the learning that you can incorporate into your plan. Culture Works. Culture Works is a specific program that we have created through the Crown Council to build the culture in your practice, specifically around learning. Again, this has its own icon on crowncouncil.org. There's an icon that says Culture Works, and each quarter we release a new Culture Works project. These are longer, and what we suggest is that once a quarter, you and your team engage in a Culture Works project. These can take a little bit longer, probably about an hour. So that's why we say once a quarter you can do this. There are several Culture Works projects that are already loaded onto the site. Everything from defining and creating your culture of success and what we call a culture guide, a whole exercise around completing and creating your compelling benefit statement for your practice, another project around creating your service values, and then finally defining your service purpose, and more projects being released on an ongoing basis. So again, this can be part of your learning culture, and part of your plan is that you do one of these Culture Works projects once a quarter. Each of these Culture Works projects is designed to be done or completed in a team meeting. So most of them can be done in less than an hour. And again, if you plan on this on a quarterly basis, then it's very easy to tackle them. They all build on each other. So if you have not engaged in these yet, what I'd recommend is that you start with project number 1 and then go through each of the projects ongoing. Webinars. Here at the Crown Council, we do webinars on a regular basis. They are archived, again, under the training tab at crowncouncil.org. And you can go under the webinars icon there, and there is a list of over 56 different webinars that we have done on different topics. Everything from case acceptance to financial arrangements to all kinds of different topics. So as you're training your team and developing your plan, again, that is a great resource. One of the longest standing programs that we have had and resources we've had in the Crown Council since day one is our program entitled the Mentor of the Month. These are typically guest interviews with different mentors inside and outside of dentistry that you can draw on to help educate and improve your team. Again, under the training tab, you can find the Mentor of the Month tab down here at the bottom, where the most recent Mentor of the Month programs are listed, as well as an archive of ones that we have done in the past. Currently, there's over 21 Mentor of the Month sessions that are loaded onto crowncouncil.org. And additionally, in case you're not aware, you can go to Apple Podcasts and you can subscribe to the Crown Council, which is the podcast version of the Mentor of the Month. So that's another easy way that you can access that information. So once you have those, then any member of the team can subscribe to that. What I would suggest with this resource, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, is that any one of these resources can be used by members of the team if they're going to present a topic. So you might assign a Mentor of the Month to a different team member and let them present what they learned from that Mentor of the Month to the rest of the team, even in just a 5-minute short overview at a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting. It's a great resource. We try and highlight things that are easily incorporated into your practice, and it's a great resource. The LEAD series, this is another continuing education resource in the Crown Council. Again, if you go under the training tab and it's down under the LEAD icon at the bottom of the list, this is a series of 21 leadership lessons that anyone on the team, from which anyone on the team can learn. Anybody that's in a leadership role, and in our book, everyone is in a leadership role. So this is a great series. You can present this to the entire team if you like, but it's a great series, 21 different topics. These were all taken from interviews that we did from leading coaches around the country, and interviews that we have with them, and specific pearls they share on how to be a better leader, personally as well as professionally in your practice. So again, that's a great resource you can incorporate into your monthly meetings. The practice of the month is one of my favorites at crowncouncil.org, which is you can go each month. There's an icon on the homepage that has a practice of the month where we highlight different practices from around the country, from which you can learn and you can share with the entire team. So again, that's another resource that you can use. So here's a tip for your learning culture of success: is rotate the different team members on your team to present different topics using these resources. And I notice I spelled resources wrong. First mistake I've ever made. So the thing I really love about this is, in fact, I'll present the one on spelling. So if you'll rotate the responsibility for teaching around to the team, then the team will learn more. It is no secret that you learn more when you teach, rather than just being the student. With all these resources, everything is pre-packaged essentially. So you could assign a different team member to facilitate the team meeting or the learning around that particular topic or session. So again, all of these things can be used to build out your continuing education plan. Many times we think of continuing education as something that's done outside the office, that we have to go to a seminar or a meeting somewhere, which that certainly can be part of it. And your plan can include things you do on a regular basis in the office that will help everybody on the team continue to learn, even on a daily basis. Here's the next tip. We started years ago with the learning culture habit of having a book of the year that the team would read together. As our culture has continued to evolve and the pace of development and change and competition has increased, we now recommend that you're always reading a book together and that you have multiples that you read together all year long. You might take a month or two to get through a book and then you move on to the next one. So we've created on the Crown Council website a list of book recommendations that have come from Crown Council practices over the years, of books that they've found helpful that help them create a culture of success. So if you go under the training tab down on the bottom where it says book library, you can click on that and there is a list of all kinds of different books that Crown Council teams have used over the years with a direct link to where you can purchase that book. There's more than one place, but that's at least a link where you can learn more about that book and order. So if you create that kind of a culture, that can also be used as part of your learning culture, part of your CE plan, that the team is constantly learning something together by reading a book. And you can take maybe 1 minute, you take just a short period at your weekly meeting or monthly meeting to review some concept from the book that you're reading together. So again, another way that you can incorporate and create a learning culture in your practice. Mastermind groups. This is one that perhaps you may not have thought of as continuing education, and it is. We are constantly creating new mastermind groups in the Crown Council on a regular basis. Crown Council Mastermind Group, and currently we have mastermind groups for dentists and for practice administrators. So on a monthly basis, if you are in a Crown Council Mastermind Group, you will meet for 1 hour once a month with on a facilitated conference call where you learn from each other, from other practices all over the country. Many times these meetings have a guest speaker or guest presenter as part of the format. So once a month you're learning from other great minds in the Crown Council. So if you have a dentist or an administrator in your practice that would like to be part of this type of learning, if you go to crowncouncil.org and down on the right-hand side where it says click here to request membership in a mastermind group, then you can sign up there and we will work to get you integrated into a Crown Council mastermind group. We have groups that have been in existence for over 20 years in the Crown Council, and it's one of the most valuable learning experiences in which you can engage. Next, in case this has slipped by your purview, every team member that is in a Crown Council office has access to all the resources in crowncouncil.org. And so we highly recommend that every team member sign up and sign in. As long as you work in a Crown Council office, you have access to all of these resources. You can go to crowncouncil.org and look for the sign up icon that's there on the right-hand side. Make sure you sign up so you can sign in at any time and have access to all these webinars and all these resources. Next, this is part of your bigger program in terms of your 2-year continuing education plan. Here's some what I call yearly program recommendations. So these would be things that Crown Council practices engage in on a regular basis that are CE related. See, there we go. So I'm going to talk briefly about all of these programs and how they incorporate into your continuing education strategy. First off, Total Immersion, which is presented by our Total Patient Service Institute team. Many people are not aware that the Crown Council has its origin and its beginnings from the Total Immersion Experience and its predecessor, Dental Boot Camp. We consider this to be basic training for every Crown Council practice. It is the one experience that, that most Crown Council practices have in common. Many Crown Council practices have incorporated this into their new team member orientation, that within the first 6 months of employment, they attend Total Immersion. It is a 2 days packed with case acceptance and patient service skills that we believe every team member should have as part of their skill set. So that should definitely be a part of everybody's continuing education plan that they have attended. One of the habits that I love from some of our best Crown Council practices is that they will schedule Total Immersion attendance for all their new team members, and the new team members will be accompanied by an existing team member. So the existing team member gets retrained, and the new team member gets to go through it for the first time. Total Immersion is held at locations all over the country every year. Our next one is coming up next week in St. Louis, Missouri. You can go to totalpatientservice.com for dates and locations, but we highly recommend that this be part of your CE plan, your annual plan for every team member. This is part of the foundational principles that make a practice great. Along with that is the No More Hygiene program. This was a creation of Crown Council member Dr. Tommy Neighbors in Nashville, Tennessee. It is based on the latest science of treating and curing periodontal disease. It is the latest cutting edge science and includes an entire program, including the diagnosis, treatment planning, treatment, financial arrangements, every aspect to be able to implement the highest level of care for your patients. Many Crown Council practices, hundreds and hundreds of them, have gone through this program and incorporated it into their hygiene program, making a significant difference. So this can be, again, part of your, it is one thing that a lot of Crown Council practices are doing now. So for more information on No More Hygiene, you can go to nomorehygiene.com. Don't let the name scare you. The high idea here is that hygiene has evolved in America to mean getting your teeth cleaned. And what we know now is that there is a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done to identify, to diagnose, and treat the actual disease. And the net effect when you put the right program is that you end up doing more hygiene treatment, more perio treatment in your office. So as you put together your plan, if you have not attended, my recommendation would be make that part of your CE, your written continuing education plan. Twice a year, dentists from all over the world come in for the Total Patient Service Leadership Academy. That is a program that lasts for a day and a half, twice a year, where dentists come together and learn higher level leadership skills, as well as we rotate a team member session each time we do one of those. You can go to totalpatientservice.com for information on that. Some of the best dentist leaders in the Crown Council make the Leadership Academy a part of their ongoing continuing education strategy. Next, the Crown Council annual event. This has become, for some of the top practices in the Crown Council, this is an annual part of their continuing education plan. They plan every year to attend this. It's a highlight of their practice year. We do it at different locations every year. Let me give you a few just quick updates on this. Our next annual event will be in February 7th through the 9th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Many of you listening are attending that program. You can go to ccannualevent.com for dates and information and how that works. What makes the annual event unique is it is one of the only events in dentistry that focuses specifically on building the dental team and the people in it. In the entire history of the annual event, we've only had 2 dentists that have presented from the main stage by design. Not that we have anything against that, but what we try and do is tap into resources outside of dentistry to bring in some fresh and new thinking on which you can build your practice. It has become a tradition and part of the continuing education plan of a lot of best Crown Council practices. So again, you can go to ccannualevent.com for more information on that and this year's upcoming annual event. I mentioned earlier in our pre-webinar announcements to make sure if you have signed up for that, again, you can go to the Crown Council website and there is a tab for the annual event. You'll want to make sure you've RSVP'd with the name of all the team members attending, as well as make your nominations for annual awards that we do every year at each Crown Council annual event. Next, this one is a new addition to our continuing education portfolio. Thanks to Dr. Ron Massey in Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, suggested this, and we have now put it into place. The Crown Council, over 10 years ago, developed a very active humanitarian arm through Smiles for Life. Each year we do a number of humanitarian dental expeditions to the Dominican Republic and to Guatemala. Your entire team can go and attend as a team. It's a week-long experience where you get the opportunity to serve people that are in desperate need of dental help. We have now created an opportunity where you can get continuing education credit for your humanitarian trip experience. So there's a tremendous amount of learning that happens on this experience, including clinical as well as service lessons and experiences. So we encourage our Crown Council teams to participate in the humanitarian expeditions. For those who have, it is one of the most remarkable experiences, not only of your year, but of your life. So if you are interested in those, again, you can email director@crowncouncil.com for information. We have typically those fill up a year in advance. As I mentioned earlier, we have an opportunity here in March coming up for a late breaking opening there. If anybody wants to go to Guatemala this month or this year in March, we have a great opportunity there. So again, you get CE credit, so you can always incorporate that into your CE plan for the year. So next steps, here's what I'd recommend based on the information that we've covered today. Is if you haven't done so already, start creating your 2-year continuing education plan. It can include seminars and meetings and conventions that you go to around the country. Our point today is to highlight things that you can do in the office using resources that are already available to you that can be part of creating a learning culture in your practice, even on a daily basis. Learning resources you can add to your morning meeting, your weekly meeting, your monthly meeting, projects like CultureWorks that you can do on a quarterly basis, as well as annual things like the Crown Council annual event, Total Immersion, and other courses of the like that you can build into your balanced continuing education plan. So that would be the challenge, is start creating that 2-year written plan that incorporates the entire team. We have many teams that calendar it out of when and where and what they're going to do, as well as the regular habits and resources that they incorporate into building their learning culture of success. Additionally, as an additional resource to our topic today, I'd recommend that you listen to one of the podcasts. There's a podcast I do every other week entitled Best Practices of Top Practices. There is a recent podcast specifically on your continuing education culture, and more specifically on how to make sure that every continuing education event is a success. So there are some specific suggestions in there on how you create the right kind of continuing education culture when you do engage in continuing education. The context here is a lot of times when we leave the office, sometimes professional behavior gets left as well. And continuing education is work just like working in the office. So this podcast talks about how you set the guidelines and the expectations for any type of continuing education that you do with your team. So you can just go to Google Play or Apple Podcasts. Just search for my name, Stephen J. Anderson, and the podcast name is Best Practices of Top Practices. So those are your two suggestions in terms of getting started today. Make sure you start creating your 2-year continuing education plan. And as a follow-up to this program, make sure you listen to Best Practices of Top Practices in the podcast on continuing education. So we hope that gives you some tips and ideas for creating your 2-year continuing education plan with the many, many resources that are available from Crown Counsel. If you have team members that have not yet signed on to crowncounsel.org, point them in that direction today. We'll get you approved and get you in so that everyone can start learning and so that you can create a learning culture of success. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for being part of dentistry's most successful culture. It's been and it continues to be a great experience in the Crown Counsel every day as we work together to create a culture of success in your practice, and in specific today, a learning culture of success. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to having you with us on our next Crown Counsel webinar. Have a great day.